well, this is going to be edited out.
Maybe, maybe not. So we're gonna talk about the your fiction, right? How Ben views fiction, because you probably have the most unique perspective on fiction that I know of. I guess Jacob. I don't want to speak for you, but for me, definitely, you have the most unique perspective on fiction, Ben, and I disagree with most of it. So, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I will. I mean, I will agree with you. Most of the people I've talked with, you disagree with many of the stuff I say. This was shown in the video that you and I did when it came to the lightsaber debate, which will eventually be posted on our channel
Yeah, one day.
sometime soon. But one day, I mean, Hello Greedo enjoyed like viewing my not viewing my perspective, but like listening to my perspective, and
Yeah,
that was just
yeah.
a small taste,
And
and that was just a small taste of my perspective.
that's what we're about to get into. Introduce yourself, Jacob, real quick.
Oh, so yeah, so I kind of view fiction between it's a cross of the way you two view it. I not only will view it from the real world perspective of like the writers and the authors and everything, but I'll also look at it from the in-universe perspective, and I'll kind of mix and mash it. Sometimes what's the word I'm looking for? It crashes with it crashes with itself. It doesn't mix very well, but you have to look for the small things. You have to be willing to look at it from every angle. That's how I view it.
Yeah, and I'm mostly the same way, other than the fact that I love to view. It's not that I do view it this way. I just love to view it this way, in the fact that I like to see how the movies were made, how the writing was made, and how and what they could have done to improve the writing, or what they could have done to improve the movie as a movie, not just as fiction.
And see, I've never been a one to like look behind the curtain and see the behind the scenes or whatever. I just don't really care about any of that. And so like I will recognize and I will look into and I'll understand why a certain thing in a fiction was written that way. I will recognize that reason, but I choose not to like solely just look at that and that only as the reason. Like for instance, if a retcon occurs, in a particular fiction, I don't care why or who they did it or who did it. I just now care, oh, well, this is now factual. I only care about this, and I instantly forget whatever it retconned. I don't question if it's a bad or good retcon at all. I just accept it and move on with life. So, as for my philosophy,
like 11 points of philosophy of your fiction.
I have 11 philosophies. It's technically 12. I just forgot to write down the 12th, but I'll talk about the 12th later on.
Okay.
But I do want to go in on this, and I wrote this pertaining to the audience's view on fiction, because I am part of the audience. I still speak for a segment of the audience. I know the entirety of the audience does not speak for itself, because each individual has their own differing opinions on how they view fiction and such. But because I'm a very unique individual, when I say I'm speaking from the audience's point of view, I'm only speaking from my point of view. But yeah. All right. So number one, I'm going to start off saying this, and I wrote it all out on Microsoft Word. So I'm just going to be reading the stuff that I wrote, and I'll be providing examples for each thing, and you guys can offer inputs. And I would prefer if you guys offered your input after I'm finished reading like this one philosophy, and then we can talk about it and then move on to the next. So, all right. So number one. History in of itself is a self-writing and unconscious story abiding by the laws set in place by the natural universe and actions of mass, whether it be living or non-living. History not only extends to the overall course of chronological events that occur in reality, but can be narrowed down to a single object's or person's own chronology. As such, history is an uncontrolled story and has an infinite amount of variables that change the course of the story no matter how drastic or subtle. In other words, history is a story of unprecedented possibilities that make it one of the most unique and best stories one can experience due to the fact that it is reality. If history were to be written down in truth, it would be impossible to call it bad storytelling, despite its constant change in nature.
Okay, but what if a fiction is badly put together and the story is very bad.
Have I mentioned fiction at all? This entire philosophy has been about history.
Or yeah, but
Can, but
when you put it into fiction, when you put that, if that's a philosophy of fiction and all you talk about is real life, it's given that you're talking about that to explain fiction. What if it's a poorly written fiction?
I feel like one of my later philosophies will answer that, will partially, if not answer fully, that question.
All right.
But can you at least agree with the concept that if you were to, that history in of itself is a story? It is a self-writing and unconscious story that abides by our own universe's natural laws and whatever actions that we as human beings or whatever animals or even just inanimate objects create.
It may or may not become a good movie. If you're to make all of humankind a movie and give it to an alien race, they may or may not think it's a good movie because, well, it could be boring at sometimes. A lot of things that happen in real life is boring.
Well, a story doesn't always have to be interesting, though.
But for a story to be good, to captivate a viewer, it has to be interesting. No one's gonna
Not all of it.
No one is going to go to a movie theater to watch a 2-hour Congress session where all they talk about is just political crap.
You used to say that the entirety of that 2-hour movie is boring.
Well, in your philosophy just said that that history is a good story because it happened because it actually happened. Well, if what actually happened was a 2-hour conversation in Congress about a certain bill in politics, that's not a good story to me.
But it's a very unique story because you have these individuals who are talking about who are talking about a particular thing that can affect the lives of themselves and others with you very, very unique and stressful political dialogue. Of course, it's not going to be interesting to you because you, Maddux, personally do not enjoy it. But just because you don't enjoy it doesn't mean that it's a bad story. All right, just because you personally do not enjoy said story does not make that story a bad story in of itself.
Then what to you makes a good story? Like, if you were to look at a storyline and you were to go, all right, well, this has got everything I need for it to become a good story in my mind. What is that? Like, you pick up a book, you read it from start to end, and you ask, and you see, this has got point A, point B, point C, point D. That makes it a good story. What is it? You there, Ben?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm here. I'm thinking about it though.
Because in my mind, what has to be a good story, first off, it has to be entertaining. It has to have me sit down and be entertained, and it has to be for me to be able to follow it. I have to be entertained. It has to have a climax. It has to have an ending. It has to make somewhat sense enough for me to comprehend it. It has to have a main character, a main protagonist, or something that's protagonist. Man versus nature, or man versus fiction, or man versus man, or man versus self, something.
And all of these themes that you're talking about all pertain to our own reality. All of these themes even pertain to your own singular life.
Yes, but that's not the whole thing. Like, of course, everything will have that kind of challenge, that conflict. Everything will have conflict, but a story in itself has to have a beginning and has to have a climax. It's got to be followable, and it has to be entertaining. And to me, if you were to do a 2-hour Congress session, that wouldn't be entertaining to me. So in my mind,
it wouldn't necessarily be entertaining, but I mean, and it wouldn't be necessarily entertaining to me either. But I wouldn't sit there and say that's a bad story.
But
just because I don't like it.
And I'll say this: if the majority of the people, if you were to take that, all right, if you were to take that 2 hours unedited, take it out, and you were to go, I expect this to be a good movie. I expect this myself to be a good story, and you put it out, and the majority of people don't like it, then it's not a good story to me. Because the point of a good story is to have the majority of people like it. Is to have as many people as possible listen to your story and go, you are a good writer. that to me is the point of making a good story. And if your story doesn't fulfill the point of a good story, which is to entertain the majority of people, or entertain the people that you want to entertain,
Is it really?
then it doesn't count as a good story to me. You did a bad job in making your story.
Is it really? This isn't a particular unique philosophy of mine, but this is a very shared and common philosophy that I do feel is lost generally to the common masses in today's society. The fact that fiction is art.
Yes,
Art is created by the art. Stop. Art is created by the artist for the artist to enjoy himself. He simply allows his audience to disagree or agree with his work, to enjoy or not enjoy his work. And in his own opinion, it's like, all right, well, if you don't enjoy my work, fine. But I made this work for my own benefit. So the writer or the writers of fiction, and fiction is art, it is a form of art. The writer and the writers should be writing the fiction in the ways that they want to see their own story unfold, so that they themselves can enjoy it. All right? Because they have the right to do that. George Lucas wanted to make the Star Wars prequels and the Clone Wars TV series the way he did because that was his story. Granted, yes, it's funny that I only say the prequels and Clone Wars because, yes, he did have a huge part in the original trilogy, but strangely enough, he wasn't one of the lead writers or like lead concept people for the story in the original trilogy. He was really more involved with the story of the prequels and the Clone Wars TV series, and that was his vision. That was the story he wanted to tell. All right? He just gave us as the audience the benefit and the respect of saying, I like it or we don't like it.
If fiction is art, can you be a bad artist?
That's a whole other discussion in all reality.
Can you be a bad artist? Because you're saying fiction is art and you make it for yourself. All right? So if you like it, it's good. Can you be a bad artist? Can I draw a picture and I put zero effort into this picture? Is it worth the same amount as someone who spent 5 years doing a painting?
Last time I checked, this entire thing was based around whether or not it's a bad story, not a bad writer.
I throw 5 minutes into writing a short fiction, 5 minutes into writing a 3-paragraph story, all right? And it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end in it, and it's got a protagonist and an antagonist. But I put it up against this, and I put it up against Lord of the Rings. Is my fiction just as good as Lord of the Rings, something I threw 5 minutes in? Is it worth the same amount?
No, it's not, but it's definitely... no, it's not, but that's what we're talking about here.
I put it out on the market, and it sells poorly. I put my version out on the market, and the intended audience doesn't stick. Everyone I give it to tells me it's not good. Is it a bad story?
From the majority of the market, yeah, it is a bad story.
All right.
But in of itself, it's its own universe.
But I'm not seeing it as in of itself. I'm seeing it as, I don't see it as in of itself. I see it as, if the market doesn't like it and it was a bad job and you didn't put the effort that you needed to put into it, well, you wrote a bad story. Yes, it has its own universe. But all in all, it's a bad story.
It's basically it's a particular universe with a particular history you're not interested in, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just trying to defend the fact that a particular piece of fiction is its own universe with its own history, just as how our history is its own story and it's our reality. The fact that our own history is quite honestly very, very unique and interesting. The fact that because it has so many things it's had so many things that's happened from the Big Bang to now. And you can take even segments of our own history, like World War II is its own story within the grand story of history. Maddux Mullinax is a tiny snippet of a story within the grand story of history. All right? The creation of Earth itself is a story.
can my story be a bad story?
I would hope that you personally don't think your own story is a bad story.
No, but can it? If the majority of people out there believe
Does
my
your story have all the things that you think a good story should have? It has a main protagonist, it has a main antagonist, has a rise, climax, and resolution, and all that
It still
jazz. But
could.
those are just basic story building. That's just story building blocks.
No, it still could. It still could. But what if it has all those aspects, and then I put it on the market, and people still don't believe that it's a good story? Everybody criticizes it. The market I sent it out to for didn't like it. It's not selling well. It didn't do well. It didn't make me any money. Is it a bad story?
Well, then they think it's a bad story. But you, as the artist, don't think it is.
So should I not improve my work so the market understands the story better?
Do you need to advertise it to the market? Is that your goal?
No, I did all,
like
I did all the
like-
advertising I did. But for me, for my story for the majority of the people in the market that I'm selling it to, because the point of the story to me is to sell it. The point of art
All right.
is to sell it.
Then let's say this. You change your story to better suit the wants and needs of the public. Okay?
Yeah.
Does that still change the concept of my philosophy?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does.
It doesn't change the concept, because then you've now created two separate universes that are different from each other that still hold the same philosophy.
Yes, but in your philosophy, it kind of sounds like you're saying that all fiction is just as good as other fiction. One man's trash is another man's treasure, basically. Is that what you're saying? What one person may view as a crap, someone else may view as genius.
Well, that's the case with anything.
Of course it is. But
Well,
what
yeah.
I'm saying,
And what I'm saying is,
if the majority of people view it as trash, then it's trash.
Okay, great. But I view fiction as literally separate alternate realities, that you have a giant sea full of realities, and our reality is amongst that sea of realities. And we can travel to each reality should we wish. Okay? And just there are some realities out there that not a whole lot of people travel to because they just don't want to, but they're still there. They're still there and unique in their own right.
They're definitely there, but we can criticize them all we want, and I don't want it. If I don't think it's good, and if it's interfering with if the thing that I like, Star Wars, for example, or Skyrim, Elder Scrolls, if they came out with a bad Elder Scrolls game, okay, the next game for Elder Scrolls is just crap. Like for some reason it has actual YouTube videos in it. I don't know why, but it does. Do I still have to accept that, even just because I like the series? Because what you say about the Star Wars prequels, and we had this discussion in the lightsaber battle, is that I should accept the lightsaber battles as canon. Well, I do accept them as canon, but I should accept them because they happen. And I should embrace them instead of going, well, it didn't have the feels, and me as a movie watcher didn't like it. Well, if the new Elder Scrolls game, Elder Scrolls 6, came out, and it had some very bad aspects to it, should I accept that, or should I be like, hey, Bethesda, change this up a little bit. We need something different because this doesn't fit the lore. This doesn't feel right, and you just did a bad job at making this game.
I feel like this entire debate and discussion will go a whole lot farther and much more better if we continue on with particular philosophies.
Yeah, I'm waiting on Jacob
because-
to come back.
Oh yeah, and wait, Jacob left?
Yeah, Jacob, his mom asked him, he had to go do something, so yeah, Jacob has to help his mom right now.
Oh, well, we'll edit that out later.
Oh, alright. Jacob, you're back!
Yes, I am back.
Why'd you leave?
Because my dog shit in its pen.
Alright.
Should I reread?
Let's go ahead and get to number 2. I think we covered number 1 strongly enough.
Well, I mean, I never did. I did figure out the answer to your question that you answered a while back, and it was like, what to you makes up a good story, quote unquote.
Okay. Well,
So to me, I think I figured it out after thinking about it more. I think to me what makes up a good story, to me personally, because there are plenty of fictional universes out there that I don't care about getting into at all. And it's either because I just don't have the time. Well, that wouldn't count because that would be a real world scenario. I just don't want to get into them because their particular themes just don't interest me. Like, for instance, I can just talk about a particular movie. I've never seen American Pie. Never seen it before. And it's not because I've not been allowed to. Because that's way in the past or whatever. It's just that I've just never been in. I know what it's about. I know its theme. But I've just never been interested in that kind of material. All right? Or like GTA 5. I use that because we're all gamers here. And I know you and Jacob like GTA 5. This is a much better analogy. I don't like the story, or I'm sorry, not the story. I shouldn't say the story. I don't like the universe that GTA 5 is set in because of the particular themes and areas that it's centered around. I don't like gang like groups or like mafia or like mob stuff like that. I'm not interested in that kind of themes. However, I respect Grand Theft Auto as a very great story, and I respect it as its own history and its own universe with its own characters, events, struggles, and everything. I just personally do not want to experience it because I'm not interested in the themes it presents to the table. I'm not saying it's a bad story. I just want nothing to do with it. I want nothing to do with it because I have no respect for the kinds of themes that it has in it. And also just down to gameplay. I just don't really like the gameplay in it either. But we're only focusing on the story. It has a great story. I just don't want to experience it because of the themes it presents to the table. Now, the kind of universes that do interest me, the kind of stories that do interest me when it comes to themes, well, themes, I can't narrow it down to the kinds of themes that it's a shoot or miss on the themes I do or don't like. I just know that Mafia and stuff like that, unless it's like The Godfather. I've never seen the Godfather trilogy, and I know how highly acclaimed they are, but due to the fact that it's the Italian Mafia, now that's a Mafia kind of thing that I actually think is really interesting because the Italian Mafia just has its infamous and notorious thing for being absolutely hilarious and really dangerous. And that is interesting to me because it's climactic. It's like, oh, okay. So whenever I sit down and watch the Godfather trilogy, I'm going to be looking into this I'm going to be looking into this story as not a story created by a writer or writers. I'm going to be looking into it just as I look into fiction for every form of fiction that I experience, as I'm just literally looking into I'm just watching a reality show, a literal true reality show, but this reality is not in our reality. It's an alternate universe with its own history, own characters, and everything. I'm just some alien from another universe with some sort of telescope looking into this universe and saying, hey, what's going on here? You know, that's what makes up a good story to me. It's really just kind of a shoot or miss kind of thing. And I really do like stories that really like flesh out events and objects and characters and technical aspects and everything. I love Halo so much because it goes so into detail about its weapons and its vehicles and the characters and its own history and the concepts and the events and everything. And it tries to make them as realistic as it possibly can because Halo is set in our reality. And because our history is part of Halo, well, that just makes it even all the better because I love history. You know? So, I mean, a good aspect, I could sit down, literally, and read the Halopedia, the Halo Wikipedia article on the MA5D assault rifle all day in and day out, about its technical specifications, what it's meant. If 343 Industries came out with something like this and said, all right, we're going to detail the assault rifle, we're going to tear it apart and name each individual part that makes it up, down to what the materials it's made of, the ammunition it uses, blah, 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 To me, that's great storytelling, because you are literally fleshing out every single inch of aspect of that universe as you possibly can. Just like how in reality, through science, history, language, culture, blah, 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 our reality fleshes out every single inch of this world and universe as we, as humans, can possibly can.
If Halo had bad writing, would you feel the same way?
Define bad storytelling, though.
No, not storytelling, writing.
Writing? I will say there is such thing as bad writing.
Okay.
But there's a difference between bad writing and bad storytelling. You can have a great story, but written horribly. All right?
How?
Because writing is the it's basically just the words and letters. It's just the object of the story, not the concepts of the story. And I think this is the 12th philosophy that I just never, because I forgot to write it down, but this can be the overlapping philosophy of everything. It's the concepts of the story that matter, not the dialogue, not the characters, not the events or vehicles or anything. Yes, you can have all the technical and juicy meat details of the dialogue, characters, technicalities, blah, 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 blah. But it's the concepts of the story that matter. Because when you look at history and everything, you're looking for the concepts. A history book, all it is just it's a summarization. A summarization is a concept. It's a summarization of history. It's not giving you any, it's giving you some quotes, but it's not like George Washington walked into the whatever the house it was called when they signed the Declaration of Independence. And like a history book doesn't give us a full account of what they all said, because we don't have a full account of what they all said.
Independence Hall?
Yeah, Independence Hall. It doesn't give us a full account of what they all said, but it gives us the concept of what happened. That, to me, is what makes a good story.
But, all right.
That, to me, is what makes up a story, is the concepts of it.
So, would y'all both agree that, like, the prequels, all right, had bad writing? I understand the story, the concept of the story was great, because it fleshed off a lot of great EU, as in, it kickstarted a lot of great EU and a lot of great side stories. I understand that about the prequels, but to me it had bad writing. The actual dialogue that the characters said, the acting may have been there for a few of them, but they were just giving bad lines. Would you agree to that? They were given bad lines?
No, I wouldn't.
I'm gonna agree with Ben. I would not agree to that.
You don't think the lines were bad?
I mean, sure, there's some bad lines, but
yeah, there's bad lines in every movie.
there's bad lines in everything.
Going to the
Godfather
Tashi
has bad
station.
lines.
Like the Tashi Station line in episode 4 was completely out of place, but of course every movie has bad lines. Every movie has good dialogue.
Well, think about this too. My defense, actually, I'm not going to defend this particular thing, because this ties into one of my philosophies later on. So I feel like we've been stuck on philosophy 1 for how long now? I think it's time to move on.
We'll move on to 2.
All right, 2 is similar to 1, but it now just deals, because 1 was all it talked about was history itself. 2 brings in fiction. So I'll just read it out. Fiction is simply another reality with its own history, abiding by the laws of its natural universe and actions of mass, whether it be living or non-living. Fiction not only extends to the overall course of chronological events that occur in its reality, but can be narrowed down to a single object's or character's chronology. As such, in order to enjoy fiction to the fullest and begin to perceive it as alive, quote unquote, or real in its own in its own respect, the audience views it as an uncontrolled story that can have an infinite amount of variables that change the course of its history, no matter how drastic or subtle. A fiction's canon, or history, is a story of unprecedented possibilities that makes it unique to experience due to the fact that it is an alternate reality. When viewed in this respect, the concept of bad storytelling is non-existent, as we as the audience are simply viewing the history of another universe unfold. Do you want me to move on to 3, or?
Move on to 3, because it's basically the same as 1.
Okay. 3. The intent of fiction is to escape our reality into another reality, so that we as the audience may forget the troubles we face daily in our own story. The irony is we share the experiences of the characters and follow along any of their troubles. We trade our own unfortunate events for another's within an alternate reality. By doing so, we perceive the characters, events, factions, governments, worlds, places, etc. as real during our time experiencing the story's history. This further implies that the canon within fiction can be viewed not as bad storytelling, but rather alternate realism.
So the short of it, since all of these are very wordy, the short of that is we're viewing it basically as it happens. Like, for example, throughout history, going back to point one, there's things that we don't know. There's variables that change.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, we're just going to view it from the omnipotent third point of view, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we'll just kind of watch it play out. We will have no interference. It's almost like looking down from above.
Right. And that ties into the analogy I used earlier about how every single time I experience a brand new piece of fiction, I feel like I'm just another person in an alternate universe with a telescope who's magically able to look into the other alternate universe and see what's going on, what's happening over there, like a reality show. Even though, yes, a reality TV show is kind of scripted and everything, imagine a true, like a legitimate reality show. Like right now, if a camera was in my room videotaping me and the world was watching it. Kind of like, what was that movie with the guy who he was trapped inside the dome from birth? Oh
yeah, that was
What was that?
Oh, that had it was the something it was his name show.
Yeah, it was like the something show, right? In that particular universe, his life was a reality TV show.
Jim Carrey.
Everything in that universe, everything about the main character was genuine, and everybody watched his life story genuinely happen as unfolded. He had no idea. He figured it out in the end.
The Truman Show.
The Truman Show, that's what it was. That's a really great example of how I view fiction. That entire movie, for the most part. So,
you're not Jim Carrey, you're everyone else.
I'm everyone else.
I'm the producers.
Number 4. Fiction.
I'm Jim Carrey.
LOL. Number 4. Fiction can be as different or as similar to our reality. No matter the case, fiction abides by its own reality and laws. But when it breaks or appears to break its own reality or history, one must take a step out of the alternate reality and determine if its faults are truly inconsistencies or simply subtle or drastic misconceptions that are similar to the frequently occurring subtle or drastic misconceptions within our reality's history. So it's kind of like what Jacob said, the fact that there are aspects in our own history in which we just have no idea. Like, how in the world? This just seems like the laws of physics just don't make sense in this particular area. Yet we know it's happening. Well, we know it's not an inconsistency because there's no way our own universe can have any inconsistencies within itself because it's just the way it's made.
Do you have any examples? Do you have any examples from text to back this up?
I did before we had this podcast. I can't think of any right now. Hold on, let me think. Let me reread what this thing was. Maybe I can think of more. If you guys want to talk to each other about this, you guys can.
Really, there's not that much to say about this.
Oh, well, I can definitely pull many examples from just the first line. Fiction can be as different or as similar to our reality.
Well, of course.
Right. Like, you look at Kingdom Hearts.
Oh boy.
You look at any Disney film, like anything really with just magic in it. It's just
so different.
It's completely different, but it has its own laws of physics and chemistry and everything with that universe. Do we, as the audience, understand them? No, because we're not in that reality. We live in our reality.
What if it breaks its own laws of physics?
If it breaks its own laws of physics, that's when I say we must take a step out of the fiction and determine if it's really an inconsistency, or does it appear to be an inconsistency, but it really isn't. Can
an inconsistency take away from the quality of the story?
It depends on whether that's true. It can, but it depends on whether it's truly an inconsistency or not. And
I think the second question was like a true inconsistency.
What question?
Your question about can an inconsistency take away? What I assumed you were meaning was like a true inconsistency.
If you're watching a movie and the audio isn't balanced very well, or you're watching a movie.
Oh,
yeah.
no, Maddux, you're talking about technical inconsistencies. This entire time, me and Jacob were talking about story canon
Well,
inconsistencies.
even then, let's say it says in one situation that one guy that person A built the Millennium Falcon, and then 2 movies later you learn that the Millennium Falcon was built before person A was even alive. Is that an inconsistency? What is that?
I'm going to use a legitimate inconsistency to back this up, but hold on, I'm going to go to Halopedia and just look, because it has an entire list of inconsistencies in the entire franchise. And I can just use any of these, or find one that's really good as an example.
An inconsistency, which is a good one, which actually has been debunked, but a lot of people view it this way. Of course, I'm going to use Star Wars for this because, like, I'll have a lot of Star Wars examples off the top of my head. Obi-Wan Kenobi aged 30 years and 19 years. How did that happen? Well, it took a while for it to explain. It was basically because of the Desert Ray. That's a good way to explain off an inconsistency, but it wouldn't age them that quickly, that fast.
Oh, what am I doing? One of my later philosophies somewhat touches or pretty much answers this question on, like, inconsistencies, like how do you go about dealing with them?
I hope you guys realize we're probably gonna have to re-record this because this is really long and really like jumbled.
We'll edit it.
You sound like the guy in BoJack Horseman. He's like, "Oh, we'll do it all later in post."
Yeah.
We'll do it in post.
What are we, Kubrick?
All right.
No, I meant, what are we really? Are we really making? We're not really making Casablanca.
Hello. You gotta make the slurping sound. Alright,
Alright, keep listing off. Let's move on.
Number 5. We, as the audience, do not have to know every mystery within fiction. The concept of bad storytelling does not relate to instances when writers refuse to explain exactly how something occurred or didn't occur. This is the same concept that when individuals within our reality's history come across mysterious events that cannot be solved or explained at the time, or possibly will never be solved or explained over time, and yet these events still occurred and are canon to our own history/reality. It's basically saying that what you see in fiction, it's canon. If it doesn't make sense to you, well, too bad. Accept it because it actually happened. And guess what? If you were in that universe and if you were actually one of the characters witnessing that happen, that character probably is also sitting there. What in the world? How is all this happening? But guess what? It's happening anyway. And you as the character, or you as the person in real life, have to deal with it. Because I'm pretty sure there have been plenty of instances in real life where there's certain people who go through certain events and they're like, how in the world is this even happening? I don't understand. All of a sudden it was quiet, then all of a second bombs are dropping everywhere. What in the world happened? And they never find out. They never find out. So it's okay if we as the audience are left questioning. There's nothing wrong with that. That is not bad storytelling. Because I've heard it plenty of times that doing crap like that is bad storytelling. And I'm like, no, it's not.
I can pull things out of Kingdom Hearts that people are like, like people who really don't understand the lore of the world. Certain events, they'd be like, oh, there's bad storytelling. How could that possibly happen? Well, if you paid attention, maybe you'll know, maybe not. Like, a perfect example. The entire, like, if you don't read, like, in 358 Days Over 2, for example, the entire existence of Shion, if you don't read the secret reports, you'll have no fucking clue what she's based on.
Or if you're like me and hasn't heard anything, I don't know, have no clue who you mention as she.
That's another good. People who are brand new to an entire franchise don't know anything, and yet they still say it's bad storytelling.
Yeah, that does bother me. That does bother. But touching back to the point where not everything has to be explained. I love that idea, which is why I hate it when we go out and explain crap that didn't need to be explained in the first place, or things that shouldn't have been explained, like the Force. I don't think the Force should ever have been explained. And
See, to me, I don't care either way.
I know you.
I don't care if something is explained or not explained. It's because if it is explained, because with me, if something is explained in fiction, I'm like, oh, I'll instantly jump on the like boat and be like, oh, okay, how is this explained? Please tell me. And then when you explain it, oh, okay, that's interesting, and then move on. Like, there is no negative criticism. It's just, oh, okay, because I accept it as canon, and I accept it, well, this just fleshes out the universe's history. Because, like I said earlier, that's what attracts me to stories. Stories that literally flesh out things down to the very last detail. I absolutely love stuff like that. So, the Force being explained with the midichlorians, and then further explaining upon that with the Force gods and the Clone Wars, huge hunk of oh my gosh, this is awesome. And episode 4 by release date just told us about the Force's existence and the fact that it's everywhere. Okay, great, but how? How does it get everywhere? Well, it gets everywhere through the use of midichlorians. Midichlorians are the biological beings that act as the catalyst for the Force to weave through. But that still doesn't explain where the Force comes from and where it originates from. Well, the Clone Wars answer that with the Force gods. So it's literally, for the most part, almost the entirety of the Force has been explained. And because the Force is a huge historical and significant detail in the Star Wars universe, in the Star Wars reality, and because we are the omnipotent viewer, well, yes, we can be the lowly position of some random citizen like Han Solo. I mean, well, Han Solo is not a lonely citizen, but Han Solo didn't, before he met Obi-Wan and Luke, he didn't care about the Force. He didn't believe it existed. He knew nothing about the Force, and yet he was perfectly fine with it. Well, I mean, you probably have the citizens in the Star Wars universe who know about the existence of the Force. They know, the Jedi and the Sith use it, but I don't know anything about it. I don't need to know anything about it. Yeah, we as the audience could be in their shoes, and there'd be nothing wrong with that. But we also could have been in the shoes where we did know about it, and we found out about it. Either way is perfectly fine. It's equally fine, in my opinion.
Move on?
Yes. 6. Fictional qualities can only be experienced through 2 of the 5 senses, sight and hearing. As such, one must realize that the events, characters, course of time, audio, and visual depictions in fiction are not exact representations and reflections of its own reality and canon to a degree, because it is fiction, and only so much detail can be implemented into it at one time due to real-life limitations. We as the audience will never get to experience the fictional universe's own reality. The audience can only gather a particular percentage of what that reality is like, a percentage that can be increased and become closer to the true reflection of that fictional aspect, but never be truly exact.
Okay.
And a good example for you, Maddux, on this is, because this, I'm kind of glad that me and Jacob talked about this. I think it was last night. He and I were kind of flip-flopping and arguing about oh no, this wasn't last night. This actually ties into the whole discussion he and I had, the pre-discussion that he and I had about which voice of Anakin is canon, or
Well, that's a video on itself.
Oh my!
And that's a video on itself. And people who watched it, and also people who watch this podcast, that is a direct foreshadow to a video and topic we will do later. Anyway,
a lot later.
But me and Jacob also talked about the audio sounds of the Halo 1 pistol, which one is canon. If it's improved, wouldn't that not be the new canon version? Like every single time you improve the audio file of a particular gun sound in a video game, it's the same exact weapon, but if you improve upon the audio file and you make it better, or you change it completely, wouldn't that mean that it's getting closer and closer and closer to what it actually sounds like in Halo's reality, or whatever game or fiction you're talking about? I'm like, yeah. And a good example for you, Maddux, since you really like Star Wars, and this can pertain to you, Jacob, and obviously myself, because all three of us like Star Wars. You look at how...
I like Star Wars. I don't know what you're doing here.
LOL. If you look at the way lightsabers are treated in the technical and the physical sense throughout the movies, like, so in episode 4, 5, and 6, when the lightsabers clash and they actually make physical contact, you see that bright light, all right? That, like, instantaneous bright flash of light, right? Yeah. It's like... And you don't really see reflections that much on their face or armor, if anything at all.
And this is the lightsabers in the Clone Wars versus the lightsabers in Rebels. They're two different animation styles.
Yeah, but the animation styles don't reflect the Star Wars reality, though. That's my whole point of this.
The Star Wars reality is what real life looks like.
Right. So, no, but anyway, let me continue with my example here. So, but then in the prequels, it's like an updated version of the instantaneous flash, and then the lightsabers, they look like they're actually making physical contact, because back then, and even now in the Blu-ray releases of the original trilogy, it just kind of looks weird when the lightsabers make contact. It just looks strange. But like in the prequels,
because they were two sticks,
right? But in the prequels, the lightsabers really look like they're making physical contact, and the sounds and the like the visual effects and everything is better. But then come episode 7. In episode 7, this one particular scene from the duel between Kylo Ren and Rey is what nails this analogy on the head. When Kylo Ren and Rey are on the ledge, and he's like, "I can show you the ways of the Force," and they're holding that defensive stance or whatever that Jedi and Sith and lightsaber users absolutely just love doing. You see the red and blue reflections and just absolute sheer lighting all over each of their faces.
Places?
Shut up. It's reflecting off their eyelids. It's reflecting off the snow. All that jazz. It's super realistic. And then, like, when they're actually fighting, the lightsabers bounce off each other. And it's like they look like actual solid blades of plasma. Whereas, like, in the prequels in the original trilogy, if you made contact, it's like the lightsabers just were still, and it's like bam, bam, bam. Whereas in episode 7, when they make contact, it's like bam, and then they kind of bounce off because the force, the physical force of Rey and Kylo Ren mashing the two sticks, the two lightsabers together, and it's literally bouncing off the blades and everything. Yeah. See, that visual depiction was never in the prequels and the original trilogy. But it's the same exact technology that the lightsabers are running on. The same exact concepts of physics and everything that the Star Wars universe runs on. So
not necessarily. Kylo Ren's saber is a little different from the traditional one because it doesn't run on the crystal.
It does run on a crystal, but it just runs on a damaged one.
Yeah, a damaged crystal with an older
is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, it's a damaged crystal with an older design for the lightsaber hilt. It needed an older design in order to compensate for the fact that the crystal was damaged.
Right, but like the plasma's plasma. Plasma is plasma is plasma is plasma. Yes, you have different varying temperatures, but it's not really going to change the physical makeup and like the way that the two lightsabers interact in the physical sense with each other. So like, if we were to be quote unquote realistic here, then the prequels, the way they showed lightsabers, should have them bouncing slightly off each other like in episode 7. How bright and intense they look should be the same in episode 7, should be the way they are in the prequels and the originals. All right, but the prequels and the originals don't show that. And that in of itself is a visual inconsistency. And this is why I say that one of my later philosophies might answer the inconsistency issue, because this is the exact reason. Everything you see, hear, or whatever is described to you, which is basically the summary of this philosophy, is not exactly as it appears, or what was said, or whatever in that universe's own history, because this ties into the whole argument of there's no such thing as an inconsistency in our own reality. So if a fiction is its own history and its own universe, wouldn't it make sense for there not to be a single inconsistency in fiction? And if there actually is one, you imagine that inconsistency doesn't exist because you just don't have all the necessary details to get around that inconsistency. All right?
Okay.
And so the two lightsabers and everything, with the reflecting off of their faces and that mixture of red and blue all over Rey's face, beautiful scene. I absolutely love that scene from the cinematographer and everything. I love that. But that should have been in the prequels and the originals, but they aren't. And it's just because the way that Episode 7 showed the visualization of lightsabers is still not exactly as how lightsabers look like and are portrayed in the Star Wars universe, but you got closer. Like the original trilogy was like 50% of what the Star Wars reality is actually like. The prequels, it's like 70 or 80%. But Episode 7, oh, that's like 95% close. But still, you got that 5% left. And the writers and the people who imagine what all this stuff look like, the CGI people, they'll never be able to get it to. They'll never be able to reach 100%.
What if the CGI is bad?
If the CGI is bad, well, I mean that's just bad CGI.
Is that a mark on the movie? Is that a mark on the movie? Will it affect the quality of the story, the quality of the movie?
Yeah, it's going to affect the quality of the story and the quality of the movie, but it's only going to affect the quality of story from an objective point of view, from treating the movie as just an object. But when you treat the movie as a legitimate story and as a legitimate universe and everything, who cares how bad the CGI is? You look at Toy Story. Toy Story has horrible CGI compared to today's standards, and yet it's still a wonderful story and concept and everything. You can still enjoy Toy Story today and be fine, or at least I hope you can. If you're one of those people who can't stand it, then get over it. And Jacob can agree with me because he's a diehard Disney fan. So
yeah, it's a sad reality when you've seen every Disney film and you own
your car is filled with Disney. Yeah.
Yeah, $300 worth of Disney pins, straight from the Magic Kingdom.
Worth it, right? Worth it.
Absolutely.
So I think we've pretty much covered that one.
All right,
and I think that's one of my favorite philosophies I have because it really helps.
By the way, Ben, me and Jacob are having an awesome conversation about you off air.
Oh, well, I haven't been paying attention, so
Beautiful,
I guess.
Check the messages, Ben.
No, not right now. I'll check it later.
I showed him on the stream. You'll see it in the video.
Oh no.
Let me put it short. I have a whiteboard and marker next to me, and I've been drawing stuff on there.
Okay, great. I don't want to know. All right.
But it's part of the story, Ben. It needs to be something that needs to be explained, Ben.
I just said that it doesn't also have to be explained. So you're contradicting yourself.
Move on. I just want
However, remember when I said in that philosophy, I said to a degree, because there are certain things that are 100% canon and 100% reflections of reality. And this leads into number 7. The inability of true fictional reflection does not extend to canon dialogue and real-life physical properties of people or inanimate objects. To follow this philosophy, inanimate objects must be real-life objects rather than fictional. However, the physical details on individuals or objects are not subject to accurate representations and reflections of what they looked like in a given moment within a fiction's reality. While all dialogue said in fiction is in fact canon, one must realize that the dialogue they hear is not always the extent of what was actually said in a fictional universe. The possibility and nature of characters having actually said more than what was actually presented in their reality is present. What do you think of this one, Maddux? And Jacob?
Maddux, you go first on this one.
Jacob, go first.
Well, let me give you all that example to start off with.
Examples.
Okay. So
I already can think of one.
So Halo Combat Evolved. All right. In Halo Combat Evolved, Master Chief, or I like to call him John because he has a name for a reason. John.
Master Chef.
LOL. John doesn't really say much in gameplay. He doesn't talk at all during gameplay because that was one of Bungie's story writing methods of you being the Master Chief. he says stuff in cutscenes, but it doesn't say stuff in gameplay. However, the official novelization of the first game, which is canon, by the way, it's the only novelization of the entire Halo games, and it's the book called Halo: The Flood. It has new dialogue that John never said in the games. All right, and the dialogue he says in the book is during the same exact moments in which you'd be playing the game. While you're playing the game, there's no in-game dialogue from Master Chief in the game, but there's dialogue that he says in the book that occurred during those gameplay segments. So it's like, well, what in the world? Which is canon? Well, the thing is, Halo Combat Evolved, the game, it showed us the canon dialogue for all the stuff he said in the cutscenes, yeah, which the dialogue he says in the cutscenes are also in the book. But the book gave us new dialogue we've never heard him say before in the game. So that means that the game wasn't reflecting the Halo reality 100%. So that means that the dialogue that he said in the book is canon, even though it didn't appear in the game. That's why I say, while all dialogue said in fiction is in fact canon, one must realize that the dialogue they hear is not always the extent of what was actually said in a fictional universe.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
The possibility and nature of characters having actually said more in their reality is present. So that means, in like the Star Wars prequels, for all we know, like, so you know the scene in Revenge of the Sith, as Obi-Wan is about to get on the Star Destroyer. I forgot the Venator class Star Destroyer of the clones, and that's his last conversation he ever has with Anakin before Anakin turns to the dark side. And in all technical essence, that was the last conversation he ever had with Anakin Skywalker, because Anakin Skywalker became Vader the next time Obi-Wan met
Not
him.
until they both become Force Ghosts.
Okay, no, you're true. Never mind. But nonetheless, in the physical human essence, that was the last conversation he ever had with him. Now, the dialogue presented in that one scene is canon, but for all we know, they could have said so much more.
It's a long ride.
You know, and that can apply to every single scene. Now, that doesn't mean that in every single moment of dialogue that occurs in a movie, book, game, comic, etc., any form of media, like they always said more. No. For all we know, that could have been all they said, and leave it at that. Like, for all we know, but we will never know because we can never go to that universe because it's a fictional universe. But I mean, you see that, and this also ties into the inconsistency argument as well, because there have been plenty of like novelizations of movies that add in completely brand new dialogue during these cutscenes that dialogue was never presented in.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings does that. You know, it's like, well, all the dialogue present is canon. It's just that the way that it's being presented to us in that manner is not exactly, it's the reflection of canon. It's just we're giving a good insight. It's the concept that matters. And that's what I think this entire thing has always been about. It's the concept of the story that matters, that makes it a good story, not all the juicy details. Or at least to me. Jacob, you said you had a good analogy too. I want you to share the analogy you had.
Oh, about dialogue?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, the one I had to do with dialogue was going to come straight out of Kingdom Hearts. Big shocker there. Like you said about how they could say some things and we would see some of it, but there's the possibility more could have been said. I was going to use the scene from Kingdom Hearts 1 when Kairi and Sora are sitting on the dock, and she says, "I can't wait till we set sail. It'll be great." That whole scene, it's only like 30 seconds, but who knows how long they sat on that dock.
Yeah. Like, we only see them sitting on the dock for 30 seconds during sunset. For all we know, they could have sat on that dock till 12 o'clock at midnight, assuming that they run on the same time as we do. Like, literally. That can apply to any scene. Do we see what Anakin does or says when he leaves Obi-Wan? Do we see any... Like, for all we know, as Darth Vader was burning up on the lava shore after Obi-Wan left, groaning and moaning and yelling and screaming, he could have said other strange, hateful things that we'll never know. We'll never know. 8. You still there, Maddux?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right. Number 8. When analyzing the morals or messages within the work of fiction, one must realize they are not always the morals shared by the writer or writers, nor are the messages direct or shared beliefs of the writer or writers. Due to this, one must analyze the messages and morals presented in the fiction's history, just as we analyze the morals and messages taught throughout our own personal and worldly history. Agree or disagree? Thoughts?
Sorry, I was typing.
Yep, same. Repeat.
All right. When analyzing the morals or messages within the work of fiction, one must realize they are not always the morals shared by the writer or writers, nor are the messages direct or shared beliefs of the writers or of the writer or writers. Due to this, one must analyze the messages and morals presented in the fiction's history, just as we analyze the morals and messages taught throughout our own personal and worldly history.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
Like, just because one writer writes about an atheistic story doesn't mean that he's atheist himself.
Well, yeah, of
You know.
course. You can write whatever. You can write whatever.
A good example.
And see,
A good example would be Tolkien. He was a very devout Catholic,
Yeah.
but his story of the Lord of the Rings, it really doesn't have anything to do with gods, and like one could argue, yeah, he puts in.
Narnia is a good example of this.
Okay, Narnia would be a better example. I don't know very much about Narnia.
Jacob, the entire Tolkien universe of Middle Earth has huge connections and analogies to Christianity and Catholicism.
But it's not just Christianity and Catholicism. That's
Right.
the thing. It's to basic human morals.
It
That's why
contradicts Christianity.
Yeah, because he deliberately wrote in characters who are atheistic, I think, or have different completely belief structures who go completely against Catholic teachings and the religions in the universe itself, just to flesh out the story and make it more immersive,
And
to make it its own world, universe, and history.
but
There's nothing wrong with that.
But there's points in there that contradict that just contradict Christianity in general.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not. But that doesn't mean he supports that. He just writes.
Yeah,
that's part of your that's in agreement with your philosophy.
that's
though.
what
That was the whole point I was making.
We're supporting your philosophy here. Like,
Okay.
He puts in points that completely contradict Christianity, and if that were to be real in real life, then that would mean Christianity couldn't be real in real life.
Now, if there's one,
but
really,
just because he
okay.
puts that in there doesn't mean he's not Christian. That just makes for a good story.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. And here's an analogy I want to use, because this is one that ticks me off to no end about the Halo community. So, and I'm gonna try and spoil as less as I can, because Jacob hasn't really gotten to this point in the canon order. So I'm just gonna try and summarize it as spoiler free as I can. So Dr. Halsey is a very, very, very controversial figure in the Halo universe. Right? There are many characters in the events of Halo that just outright hate her. They cannot stand her. They think she's evil. They think she's selfish, hypocritical, a liar, downright immoral, did treasonous acts against humanity by kidnapping children for the Spartan program, blah, 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 blah. And most of these individuals are Oni operatives, but you have some citizens that know about this. You have Spartan 4s that know the history and past of the Spartan 2s, or they don't know the entire history, but they know snippets of history. They know that they were children kidnapped, and they know that Dr. Halsey was the head scientist of the entire program. They hate her, and yet the entire community thinks that all the writers at 343 are Halsey haters, and that they think Halsey's evil and blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting here saying, no. Just because they're writing characters that hate Dr. Halsey so much does not mean they themselves, as the writer, believe that. They're just writing a unique perspective on Halsey that's never been seen before in Halo fiction. Because before all the Halsey hate in the Halo universe even came around in the story, the only perspectives on Halsey was positive. Like, the Spartan 2s looked up to her as a mother figure.
Could a good example be that
it's like, what in the world?
Could a good example be that in the actual movies of Star Wars, the dark side of the Force is portrayed as actual evil?
Yeah.
They're very, all the movies are very black and white, good v evil. There's not, the light's always shown as the good, the dark is always shown as the bad.
But not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
When you dig deep into it.
When you dig into the EU, yes.
Well, not even the EU. You can just do the movies.
All right.
Even just the movies themselves show just that the Jedi Order were just as corrupt.
Let's do the original trilogy.
Okay.
Right? In the original trilogy, the dark side is portrayed as evil. The good light side is portrayed as good. Good v evil.
Yeah.
Easy to follow. Made for a great movie, right? But once you dive into a little bit of the EU, once you dive into a little bit of the other stuff, you find out that it's not so black and white. But if you were to just watch
There's
the
a lot of
movies,
gray area.
yeah, and a lot of people would take that as the writers made it. The writers in making the movies of the original trilogy obviously wanted to make the dark side look evil because it made for an easy to follow, nice and neat plot.
Right.
Yes,
and there's nothing wrong with that because that
in
plot
canon,
itself.
yeah. But in canon, and if you lived inside the universe, the dark side is not necessarily evil. It's that it can be used for evil. And the light side is not necessarily good, and that proves your point. That goes along with your point. That
and the light side can also be used for evil.
Yes.
I mean, you see that.
Oh, yeah.
You see that in Pong Krell in the Clone Wars. Yeah, he turned against his clone troopers. He betrayed them. But did he fall all the way to the dark side? No, he was still on the light side.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. He was actually. It's actually been explained, and it's in canon that he was going to Sidious. After that battle, he was completely leaving, and he had already fallen to the dark side.
Oh, all right, then never mind. What am I thinking? A better example: Mace Windu and his fighting style.
Yeah.
The fact that he.
Or Mace Windu and the fact that he was about to kill Sidious, which is not the light side way.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have those things, and here's another one too. Here's another Halo analogy, and this ties to me and Jacob because we've talked about this too as well in the past. It's the whole theme of is John lucky or not?
Oh my God.
Yeah, but Jacob, this is a really good analogy to use because
I know.
Most great stories, the main character is lucky because all these great things happen to him by chance, or it wouldn't be a good story. No one wants to watch an average guy.
I disagree. I disagree.
No one wants to watch an average guy. Of course, he has to have something lucky happen to him.
See, but to me, when I watch fiction and everything, because I view every single scenario that occurs as realistic pertaining to its own universe, or even realistic in regards to our universe, the average guy or the superhero who basically just never basically what I'm boiling down to, I don't think there's ever a such thing as plot armor. I don't think there's a such thing as plot armor. Just within that universe's reality. Okay, great. That person just so happened to survive. If the chances of them surviving that conflict, hell, even Jar Jar Binks in Episode 1 flipping around shooting the blaster with his feet. Could that have happened in the Star Wars reality? The chances of that happening?
Confirmed.
The chances of that happening, are slim, but he still did it.
And I agree.
It still happened. It still happened. Just because he survived doesn't mean that he has plot armor. It just means that Jar Jar Binks got really fucking lucky and he survived.
And I agree with you in that sense.
Stranger and crazier things have occurred in our reality where you have war veterans coming from war from all aspects of history, and they're like, I can't believe I fucking survived that.
I agree with you in that sense, but the point where me and you differ is the fact that should that have even been in the movie in the first place? I think that was a bad scene, and it was just thrown there for comedic relief, and I don't think it should have been in the movie.
Either way, to me, whether it was there or not, doesn't matter. I don't think it has any negative or positive impact. What's there is there.
But would it
accept
affected?
it.
Would it have affected your Would it have affected your enjoyment of the movie?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Because I enjoy what's given to me. I enjoy what's given to me, and I accept it, and I move on. And I realize and I understand that I didn't see everything. There was more I could have seen or could not have seen. I'm sorry, there was more I could have seen. It's still there. I just didn't get to see it, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Yeah, the whole luck thing with John and the Master Chief and everything. Okay, yeah, so the writers write in many plot threads and everything about John being lucky all the time. But does that mean that he's really lucky? Or is he just surviving all these conflicts due to technology or his own skill set? The writers are making you think that he's lucky, but actually he's not. I don't know. He could be lucky. He could be.
There is one instance where it is 100% pure luck. Back when Halsey first met John with the coin flip. A coin flip is pure luck.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a pure instance of luck. And that's what shocked her, because Halsey didn't believe in luck. And that's why she likes John so much. But that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons. But I don't want to turn this into a lore video. Continuing on. The characteristics of writing fiction. This is number 9, by the way. The characteristics of writing fiction are the same as the characteristics within the written reality. Certain objects, characters, or events will be used as symbolic development tools from a writer's perspective. But within the universe itself, these objects, characters, and events have a different symbolic nature, being historical and significant characteristics in its own reality. The audience are reserved to being the innocent bystanders or legitimate characters established in the fictional reality. And this ties into the whole lightsaber debate that me and Maddux are having, because Maddux was saying, and he was right, he's right, again, like at the very beginning of this podcast, I stated that, yes, I recognize the characteristics of a writer and like writing a story. And I recognize why certain things are written in such a way. But I choose not to look at fiction in that manner, like what Maddux does. Maddux chooses to view fiction in that manner. I do not. As such, Maddux is going to view the lightsaber as a story-developing tool to advance upon character development, emotions, and everything.
Yes.
Whereas he's going to view it as a symbolic nature as that. Whereas I am going to view the lightsaber as simply as just a weapon used.
A tool of destruction.
A tool of destruction. And this is something that Jacob actually agreed to me on, by the way. Maddux. Yeah. And that the lightsaber is a symbol of Jedi or Sith power, and it's a basically, as Obi-Wan puts it, it's a symbol. It's like a more civilized weapon of an older age. That particular line of dialogue from Episode 4 is basically the core essence of the symbolic nature of the lightsaber in the Star Wars universe, and that is the only way I will view the lightsaber as a symbolic piece of equipment. And it's because I only view things from the in-universe canon perspective. Not the writing
I'm
perspective.
terribly sorry in advance. I have to step outside to have a cigarette, and you're all coming with me. So if wind catches me...
Oh, yay, we get to step outside with Jacob.
So...
Yeah, you get to come for the cigarette.
Like, you look at the One Ring in the Lord of the Rings, all right? That is basically the most important symbolic piece of writing equipment Tolkien ever used to explain the battle of good versus evil and everything, and the symbolic nature of temptation in his works. I recognize that. But I choose to look at the One Ring as the symbolic nature, as all the hobbits, the wizards, the orcs, from the different perspectives that they view the ring as. I'm the hobbit, or I'm the wizard, or I'm the orc, or I'm the elf, or I'm the human, viewing this ring.
And you view the ring as the ring.
The way that is viewed in universe.
Yeah.
That is
the ring of power.
The ring of power, and a symbol of destruction,
yes.
or a symbol that can, or as Gandalf said, I would want to use this for good, but
due to the nature of the ring.
But would it not hurt the movie? Would it not hurt the movie and hurt the storytelling if the ring would, if they would just exploit the ring and like every 5 minutes someone pulls the ring out of their pocket or something?
That would ruin it.
Yeah, it would hurt the movie if
That
the
would
ring
that would
was shown
ruin
too
that
much.
would ruin the story established, but that in of itself is creating a brand new story with
Yes,
that
it's
is
creating
its
a
own.
brand new story, but it's creating a bad brand new story.
I'm gonna have to agree with Maddux on that one. If let's say even in the books, if they were to use the ring at every instance available, it would get boring. And not only would it get boring,
Like, oh
you
my
would
god,
feel
oh my god,
you would have
there's
no hope.
yeah.
You would never feel the hope that it would be destroyed. You'd be like, yeah, there's no fucking way.
Like, there's a rat in our way. Let's use the ring.
Okay, great. But guess what? That's not what occurs in that established story. That's a completely brand new story, therefore making a completely brand new universe with its completely brand new history and everything. Yes, it will share certain characteristics, but is it a bad story?
And I would guarantee you the majority of people would rather watch the established story of Lord of the Rings now than the new one where they pull out a ring every 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah, they would.
Also,
And I probably would not want to partake in that, and I probably would not want to partake in experiencing that story. But I will still say that that story has its own history, and it's its own universe.
No one's arguing that. No one's arguing that. We're arguing whether or not it's good or bad. We're arguing
whether it would be a
or not-
good story that you would want to enjoy,
Yeah.
that
no
you would
one-
want to experience.
Yeah. No one's arguing the fact that it would be canon in a new universe. We're arguing the fact that that's bad story.
It wouldn't be it wouldn't be an entertaining story that you would. It would be a story you would not want to experience.
For the same reason why I don't want to experience GTA or something like that.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. But I already gave. But my reasons for not wanting to experience those universes were different than everyone else, than most everyone else.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And going back to your lightsabers, the reason why I thought it was bullcrap that they pulled out a lightsaber so many times in the prequels is that it got boring to see a lightsaber.
I disagree with that.
But I know you disagree with that. But me personally, it got boring for me to actually just see it. In the original trilogy, just seeing the lightsaber held some weight. And I wish that weight was carried on into the movies. I get that they're in a war, and I get that in the actual universe they'd be using a lightsaber a lot more because they're in a war and that they're at the height of their power. But it would be great that in the movie, and when they show it in the movie, it would still have some weight to it. Like, it would be a massive moment. Like, the entire movie builds up to just seeing that lightsaber and just seeing it, the entire theater erupts. I think that would make a better movie. That's how it happened in The Force Awakens. When you first see the lightsaber in the box and she just pulls it out, that's such a heavy moment.
I want to know how she got a hold of that lightsaber.
I do.
Still.
That's bullcrap. I'm still bullcrap. I mean, I'm gonna make an episode of bullcrap on that because she shouldn't even have that.
Yeah. By the way, to anyone who's watching this video, that's another series that
Yeah.
We're gonna all try to put out a video. Everyone,
bullcrap
like
episodes.
an instance of something. This is BS.
Yeah, this is BS. Like having Luke's lightsaber or Vader's lightsaber, actually, Anakin's lightsaber, in that movie is complete bullcrap. It shouldn't be there.
Number 10. Now this is another thing that I have a big issue with a lot of people when it comes to saying, "Oh, it's bad storytelling." Characters are not static. Just as people change subtly or drastically in real life, a character can go through similar actions. As such, the notion of something a character said or did being quote-unquote out of character and a way of dealing with impossibilities in relating to bad storytelling is untrue. An overall change in a character's personality is simply that, not an example of bad storytelling.
All right. We got about 10 minutes left in this before we make it too long. So which point are we on right now? What number?
Number 10, and there's 10 out of 11, so we're almost finished.
Okay.
So, a good example of this. You see this huge character development in Anakin. I'm just use Star Wars for an example. Actually, we've been using Star Wars in Halo, but then again, I want to use Kingdom Hearts, but Maddux,
You really can't.
because Maddux doesn't know a whole lot.
You can use it. It's just these are two really good examples, I guess.
Yeah, Halo and Star Wars, a lot more people know. So for like this being like the very first podcast, it's a lot easier to use. Later down the line, we can start using Kingdom Hearts after.
And it's better examples too.
Okay.
I could go into BoJack Horseman and show his character arc too, but not many people will know that.
Okay. All right. Let's just use Halo then, because I'm the one using technology.
Yeah, use Halo. A lot of people know that stuff. We'll use it.
Right. And okay, Cortana.
Yeah.
So
she goes crazy, right?
She goes insane and rampant at the end of Halo 4 and dies. But she somehow comes back to life, quote unquote. It's not really Cortana. Technically, it's really not. It's just a collection of fragments of Cortana who think that they're a real Cortana when in reality it's not. But nonetheless,
kind of like the AIs in Red vs. Blue.
Similar. Yes, very much similar. Like, you know how in Red vs. Blue, all the AI fragments, Sigma wanted to collect all the fragments to make Alpha, but that was impossible. They could never recreate Church. They could never recreate the Alpha AI.
When you don't understand Red vs. Blue, so you have to sit awkwardly.
Hey, that's how I'm going to feel for most of this canon.
So, Cortana in Halo 5 is represented completely out of character for the Cortana that we know her. And people are like, that's bad storytelling because you're going against Cortana's already established character, morals, and everything, and blah, 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 blah. Wake up call, people. Guess what? Cortana changed. Oh, you want Cortana to be static? Huh. Well, guess what? That doesn't happen in real life. People don't remain static. They can change. And Cortana did change because it's not really Cortana. But let's keep a character who didn't change physically, and it's actually been the same character the entire time. Well, you got John. John has been through several character developments in his life. All right.
All right. What
like many people expect John to have the same views on the military and on life and on about himself as general as he did as a child when he was 6 years old, and he's 42 biologically right now.
All right.
Are you serious? You are expecting him to keep the same things he did as 6 years old? Yes, I know that there are people. Even I have some things as a 6-year-old that I still hold true to my heart.
Right.
But I've grown and I've matured and I've changed. So when a character changes or does something that is completely out of character, I still say it's completely justified in writing because people can instantly flip for no reason in reality.
Yes, yeah. You established that, and we all get that. We're not arguing with that. But what if the change is unneeded? All right, I'm going to use an example from Legends in Star Wars. When Luke turns to the dark side.
First of all, I think that concept is absolutely amazing.
All right, it could be, but it's, to me, I would feel more like it's a little bit unrealistic. It's and it's not with the character. The character.
I would disagree.
You would? I would say it's unneeded. I'd say it's just an unneeded story we don't need. Why can't we get a new character? Why do we have to get this one character that the fans love, and in the movies it's basically established that he's just instantly good? Because I feel like that would take away from the moment when he denied the dark side in episode 6 and went and established himself as good. And
he established that fact, and he denied the dark side in that moment. At that moment, his opinions could have changed. Because guess what? Give it another few years, your opinions on certain things could change.
I would disagree with you, Maddux, though, because we also what's established in the films is Luke wants to learn about the entirety of the Force. That's why he went to Master Yoda. And Master Yoda could only teach him so much. Therefore, it would seem, since he wants to learn all he can about the Force, he would have to go to the dark side.
Okay.
Of course, that's in Legends.
This is Legends. This isn't canon anymore, but...
And that's one of the reasons why I don't like Legends.
Well, Legends...
That and, like, Insidious coming back alive. And
it's funny, and I guess you can have the right... And I guess you can have the rights of calling me a bit of a hypocrite, but because Legends was never actually truly official canon from the source,
True.
none of my philosophies pertain to it.
Okay.
Because and the reason why is this. Well, yes, each individual book, game, and comic, and I know there are probably people who watch this video can call me out like, oh, you're a hypocrite, you're going against yourself. Well, not necessarily. And the reason why is because, well, yes, these are each individual stories in their own right. They are part of they are wanting to be associated, to be a part of another established universe. They conflict so much with everything. They have nothing to do with the relation of the main source material. All right. Lucas, during that particular time of Legends, was the source. Lucas and Lucasfilm was the source material for all things Star Wars. That meant that during the entire time of Lucasfilm owning the rights to Star Wars and George Lucas being the head honcho, basically, that meant that the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, the Star Wars Clone Wars TV animated series, the 2D one back in the early 2000s, the 3D Clone Wars TV series,
in the early 2010s,
and in the early 2010s were canon. But the books, Lucas never did anything with them. He didn't even know about the stories in them. The comics, he didn't know anything about them. Right. As such, these are stories separated from the source guy, and as such,
10,
my philosophy is...
Point 11. We need to move on.
Anyway, you get my point.
Yeah, we understand the point. Yeah.
Yeah, you get the point.
Uh-huh.
All right. So number 11, and this is the longest one, which is good because we're ending.
Yeah.
Despite all of these philosophies, the audience has the reservation of not having to enjoy certain aspects or the results of certain aspects that occur in a fiction's reality and history.
Hashtag not my canon.
Just as we in our reality do not have to enjoy certain results of certain aspects that occur in our reality and history. This also applies to the characters within the fictional reality itself as well. They themselves don't have to enjoy everything that occurs to themselves or their own history. All right? Like, I'm pretty sure many Jedi didn't like the fact that the Sith were coming back, or many citizens in the Empire, in the Republic. Padme hated the fact that now the Republic's turning into an empire. Like, she didn't like that. That's fine. It's perfectly fine. However, the only mandatory viewpoint of the audience is acceptance of canon based on what has been provided to them, despite the inaccuracies or unfortunate events that may conflict with the audience's best interests. For the same reason that we must accept history and our own reality for what it is and what has been provided to us, despite the unknowns and unfortunate events that may conflict with our best interests.
Hashtag not my canon.
And once again, this concept applies to even the characters themselves within their respective fictional reality. And that's it.
I would agree for most of that, yeah. Except for the hashtag not my canon part, which I love.
Well, too bad, Maddux. I know you just love saying it. I know you're just kidding with us.
That's like my newest favorite line that I'm going to use a lot. But,
hashtag not my canon.
Yeah, hashtag not my canon. You like that?
And
Star Wars Legends, hashtag not my canon.
Oh, yeah.
Well, duh, it's not. So...
Jar Jar Binks being a character. Hashtag not my canon.
Oh my gosh. one of the good examples, and I'm gonna call out Hello Greedo on this. So Hello Greedo, if you're watching this, I'm calling you out. Sorry.
You've been called out.
I remember watching one of his videos on Legends, the top 10 most ridiculous things in Legends or something like that. One of them was Boba Fett coming back to life. All right. Okay. I respect the fact that you don't like the fact that he came back to life. That's fine. I'm pretty sure there were plenty of characters in that universe itself who were like, he's back? He never died? I thought he died. Well, he didn't die. Apparently he survived somehow. How did he survive? I don't know, but he's back. Well, crap. What do we do? Well, I don't know. They hate the fact that he came back to life. Oh, I mean, didn't come back to life, that he survived.
Great voice
because...
acting.
Huh?
Great voice acting.
10 out of 10.
Yep.
Oh. Wait, are you being serious? Or?
Next, Troy Baker.
I was about to say, what the... Okay, anyway. Okay, Hello Greedo, great. You don't like it. I respect that. That's fine. I personally don't mind it. I think it's pretty interesting that he survived, and they gave a justification as to why he survived. He did have a jetpack, or at least in Legends, he had his jetpack, and his armor was immune to the acid. That's enough justification for me, because that's realistic for the Star Wars universe. Great.
No, and by the way, in canon, it's basically all but confirmed that he did survive the Starlight Pit.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, even in the new canon.
Yeah, he got a few mentions in a few books. They basically said that they found pieces of his armor that went into the Starlight Pit, or they found pieces of Mandalorian armor that had that had acid on it. Okay, and it was I can't think of the right word. What is not decomposed, but the right word. It had the right kind of acid on it.
Resistant.
Yeah. And it was the same kind of armor, and it was same described just to be like Boba Fett's, and they haven't mentioned his name in canon, but it's all but confirmed.
Huh. And see, like, okay, Pellegrino, that's fine. I respect the fact that you don't like it, but the fact that he just goes out to say that it's ridiculous and he doesn't accept it, I'm sorry, but you kind of have to accept it because it happened.
An example. I want to shout out another. I'm going to call out another channel called the Scoundrels Cantina. They have this thing called Head Canon, where they have their own unique canon. I think they would disagree with you on a lot of points, in the fact that they don't accept Episode 7 of Star Wars as even canon.
Well, too bad. You kind of have to. So sorry. It is.
I know.
Disney wiped the canon.
Yeah, and
except for the source material.
It's a good thing they did, though.
Yeah.
I would agree.
I do, and I agree as well. I do enjoy the concepts that Legends brought about, like the overall major concepts, like the beginnings of the Sith and the old Republic, and like the way later on after Episode 6, the fact that you had an extra galactic enemy called the Yuzon Vong, and they came in and attacked the Star Wars galaxy and nearly wiped everyone out, and they were immune to lightsabers, they were immune to the Force and everything. Like, oh shit, that's a really powerful enemy. And they were all organic. They only used organic things. They never used any sort of technology. Just organic stuff.
That's something I hope Disney brings back.
Yeah.
That's something I hope they don't.
What, the Yuzong Vong?
Yeah.
I want them brought back. I want it told a little differently, but I would love to see that one come back.
I don't want to see them because I feel like it would take away from the main storyline. Like, everything they did to save the universe is kind of for nothing.
I'm talking like a post Episode 9, like after the major arc is done.
See, Maddux, you say main storyline. I say what?
By the way, Old Republic is canon again.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
But the idea of a Old Republic, it gets a mention in the Clone Wars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The concept of the Old Republic, again, it's like the concept of Darth Bane. Was it Darth Bane?
I don't know. Bane. I don't know if it's canon still, but I know.
No, Darth Bane is canon. That's right. That is his name. Darth Bane was the guy who started the rule of two.
You're right. He is canon. Yes. No.
Yeah.
You're 100%.
The concept of Darth Bane is canon, but his biography in Legends is not canon. Like, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I just remember that. I think he actually gets I think
he's in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, he's in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, because Yoda goes to him.
Yeah, Yoda sees him and asks, "Do you know who I am?" And he goes, "I'm Darth Bane." Yeah.
So Maddux, you say the Yuzon Vong would, stray away from the mainline story of the Star Wars franchise.
The meaning of the movies, yes.
The meaning of the movies. Well, to me, I'm not really looking at the meaning of the movies. I see a main storyline, but I see the way I look at a main storyline in any form of fiction. Again, I just look at it as history. It's just the history of that universe.
And you say that.
And like our own history doesn't have a main storyline. It's just history. It's just a bunch of other stories not conflicting, just combining to make one grand epic tale of history.
All right. But if the story for the movies is all for nothing, and the fact that they saved the universe just to have it attacked by some outside force which is immune to the Force, immune to lightsabers, wouldn't it take away from the epicness, the significance of the story of the movies?
In my opinion, no. And you know why? Because that epicness and everything that's already been established by those movies has been established, and it's pretty much kind of dwindled. Now the epicness, it doesn't ruin the already established epicness. What it does, it creates a brand new kind of epicness, a unique epicness. You have two epicnesses. One epicness began, and now it's ended, and now it's been replaced with a completely brand new epicness. It doesn't tarnish. It doesn't do anything. It only tarnishes the already previously established epicness if you as the individual view it that way. And you as the individual have the ability to not view it that way and say, the old epicness, it's over. Now we enter in a new saga. Just like with Star Wars, we are now entering a brand new saga filled with completely brand new and original epicness.
One last word, and one last question, and we'll end it. Can the original substance of a movie, let's say let's just take Ghostbusters for example. Can the original Ghostbusters? No, not the new one. Can the original Ghostbusters could it be tarnished or ruined by its sequel and its sequel game, which is considered in all essence the third movie? Can it be tarnished? Can the legacy
well, we don't even have to use Ghostbusters. We can use like movies like Jaws.
Yeah. Jaws is a great example. Sorry.
No.
Can its legacy, can its impact be tarnished by later installations?
Oh, it can, but only if you as the individual, or
to the general
you, or to the well, the individual is part of the overall majority, and I'm going to use the overall majority as one unit. If the overall majority views it as such, oh yeah, and you can view the later movies in such a way as saying it's tarnishing the first movie. You can view it like that, but you don't have to. So the way I look at it is, the events of the third movie have nothing. I mean, yeah, they carry on with the events that occurred in the first and second, but by itself, it's just a time period in the Jaws history that has nothing to do, because it's not conflicting or happening simultaneously. Now, if somehow you're able to mash the two time periods together and they're both happening at the same time, then yes, it's tarnishing the first movie. But because it's happening later down the line, a few years ahead, that just means it's the golden age of history. Right. And every new empire, because it's like, when an empire falls, is it tarnishing its legacy? No, its legacy lasted. Its legacy was great. It just crumbled in the end. All right, which is unfortunate.
So if a hero sets out an entire movie to save a damsel in distress, and he saves her, all right, and they have a great thing, and the movie ends in a happy ending, and in the beginning of the second movie, at the beginning of the second movie, they break up, and that he never sees her again, and
basically, it was a waste of a relationship.
It was a waste. Yeah, it was a waste of a relationship. Does that take away from the significance? And if you were to go back and rewatch that first movie, would it take away to you, Ben? Would it take away the significance of him saving her if you know later on they're just going to break up?
No, and the reason why, reason why is because I look at what's going on in the now. Right. He's happy, and I'm going to look at that, and I'm going to respect that. I know in the future he's going to be sad, and something bad they're going to break up, and it's going to be unfortunate. But the fact of the matter is, I'm going to look at it in the positive light. He found someone he liked. She liked him back. He rescued her. It's all great and dandy. But all things come to an end.
All right.
All good things come to an end.
Well, it looks like we hit the end of the podcast, though. That's a good end.
Yeah, that seems about... We've been going for a while.
Oh, yeah, a pretty darn long while. I don't know how long it will end up being, because we got to cut out at least 15 minutes in the middle when Jacob's gone, and we're just sitting here doing nothing, watching YouTube videos.
Yeah, you might want to cut out that whole thing.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like this video. You guys have anything to say?
Jacob, you go first if you want.
Oh, no, it's good. You go first. I got to finish this text.
I just want to I'll go first, actually, because I do want to say something. To everyone who's watching this video, please realize that all three of us are just very passionate about what we talk about. And if any one of us, especially me, because I've had some people who say that I seem like I'm condescending. I have a condescending attitude when I debate and when I have discussions with people. But that's really not the case.
Interrupting attitude.
And that yeah. LOL. I'm not doing it intentionally. And if it comes across as condescending, please realize that that Maddux and Jacob are two of my best friends ever, and that they don't view me as condescending, and I am not this intellectually sounding when I meet a brand new person, because it's wrong to sound to bring your full force on someone when you first meet them.
But what if
So-
but what if someone takes you as condescending? Can they do that as canon?
Shut up, Maddux. But I just want to let all these know. If I sound condescending, I'm not meaning it to be. So just bear with all of us. And
Alright.
all three of us are all equally at fault for sounding like that. Because,
Jacob.
yeah.
Scribe.
All right.
No, thanks for watching and sitting through our rambles.
Yeah.
If you made it this,
I know,
if you made it this far,
Yeah.
put in the comment section. Put in the comment section. What should they say in the comment section?
Hashtag not my canon.
If you
Yeah,
put
there
in
you go.
hashtag not my canon, we'll give you something. We'll give you a
give you a
keck or
shout out.
something. Yeah, we'll give you a shout
Right.
out or a keck.
Also, if I've managed to change some sort of philosophy you guys have, and not you, Maddux, and not you, Jacob, but
Oh my
like
god,
anyone
you're
who
not
watches-
changing mine. No.
like anyone who's been watching this video, if you've seem convinced by either Maddux's, Jacob's, my point of view, talk about it in the comments below.
Yeah.
We'd be more than welcome to open up a conversation. Let us know. We are a growing channel after all.
All right, thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe. Please like the video. Please share. It'll help us out a crap ton. Stay tuned. We're gonna have a lot more videos posted right after Christmas break, basically, because we gotta go through Christmas and everything. And I'm going through a move. Jacob's getting a new laptop. Ben's just sitting on his ass all day. So. All right, so we got to go through Christmas stuff. We'll get a lot more videos posted. Each one of us are going to post an equal amount of videos, basically. We're still trying to figure out a way to show in the thumbnail whose videos is whose. But we'll have a lot of different stuff. Basically, we'll explain it in the trailer. Watch the trailer. It'll be a short one. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks a ton. We seriously appreciate even one view, even if you've watched the first 5 minutes and checked out. Well, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching, basically. See you guys.
Bye.
Goodbye.